In this video, I'll show you how to create a progress bar in Google Sheets. We'll go through the formula and a few practical examples with percentages, numbers, and different colors. You can also download this file and follow along. Let's start. Here I have a column with progress in percentages. This format works best for progress bars. First, we type SPARKLINE. Google Sheets shows suggestions and highlights what we need next. For data, we just select the cell with the percentage. Now we add options. This is where we control how the bar looks. We open curly brackets, type charttype, and set it to bar. This means we're creating a progress bar. Now we separate the next parameter with a semicolon. Next, we add max. This defines what 100% is. If you're using percentages, you can use either 100% or 1, because in Google Sheets, 1 equals 100%. Then we add color 1 and choose any color. You can type the color name or use a color code. If you don't set it, the default color is orange. This is the basic formula. Press Enter and we get a progress bar. To copy it down, just drag the formula. It will automatically adjust to each row and use the correct cell. Now look at this. This cell is empty and the progress bar shows an error. To fix this, we add another parameter, empty 0. This means if the cell is empty, it becomes 0. Now, let's copy the formula down again. Now everything works correctly. One more important thing. Here we have the number 7 instead of a percentage, and the bar is full. That's because our max is 1, which means 100%. If I change this one to 100%, nothing changes. It works exactly the same. Now look at this. If I change the value from 7 to 0.7, the bar updates correctly. That means Google Sheets reads 0.7 as 70%. And if I apply percentage format, we can clearly see it becomes 70%. But if I change it back to 7 and format it as a percentage, now it shows 700%. That's why the bar is fully filled, because it goes way above the maximum, which is 100%. Now if I enter 1, it becomes 1%. So always pay attention to how your numbers are formatted, and make sure your percentages are set correctly. And one last thing, if this formula doesn't work for you, it's probably because of your region settings. In some countries, commas are used differently. Inside the brackets, replace commas with backslashes inside each parameter. Then, before the curly brackets, replace the comma with a semicolon. I'll add both versions of the formula in the description so you can copy them. Now let's look at some practical examples. Now, let's create a progress bar that changes color when it reaches 50%. This is a great visual trick. We start with the SPARKLINE function. Select the cell with the percentage. Open curly brackets. Here I'll format the formula to make it easier to read. To move to a new line inside the formula, press Ctrl plus Enter. Now we write charttype bar. Set max to 1. Now the most interesting part. In the color 1 parameter, we use the if function. Open brackets and write the condition. If our cell B2 is less than 0.5, remember, this means 50%, then the color will be red, otherwise it will be green. Close the if function. Then close the curly brackets and the formula. In these examples, I won't include the empty parameter to keep the formula simple, but remember that you can use it. And we're done. We have our progress bar. Now drag the formula down to copy it. Let's check how it works. And it works perfectly. Now let's move on to the next example. This time, we'll create a progress bar with 4 colors and use another function. We start the same way. Type the SPARKLINE function and select the cell. Set charttype to bar and max to 1. Now for color 1, since we have multiple conditions, we use the ifs function. We write the first condition. If our cell B2 is less than 0.2, which is 20%, then the color is red. Then we separate conditions with commas. This may be different depending on your region. Next condition. If B2 is less than 0.5 or 50%, the color is orange. Third condition. If B2 is less than 0.8 or 80%, the color is yellow. And the last condition is true. This means if none of the previous conditions are true, then the color is green. Close all the brackets. Now copy the formula down, and it works perfectly. Now I'll show you how to use any custom colors. First, I choose colors from the palette and fill a few cells, just to see how they look together. Once you like the colors, click the plus icon at the bottom to add a custom color. Here you can see the color code that starts with hash. Copy this code. There's also a full color palette where you can choose any shade you want. Now go back to the formula in the first row. Double-click to edit it. And instead of the color name, paste your color code. Do this for each color. Make sure you edit the formula in the first row so you can copy it down after. Once everything is ready, drag the formula down. Now it looks much more natural. And if we remove the grid lines, go to View, Show, and uncheck grid lines, it looks clean and minimal. Now let's move on to the next example. In this one, we have a task column with numbers and a goal column. So this example is not based on percentages. The progress bar changes depending on how many tasks are completed compared to the goal. We start with the SPARKLINE function again and set charttype to bar. But here, the max parameter is different. Instead of using a fixed value, we select cell C2. This is the goal for each row. Now for the color, we'll use a condition similar to the first example with the if function. We write the condition if B2, the number of completed tasks, is less than C2, our goal, then the color will be light blue. Otherwise, meaning the goal is reached, the color will be green. So the bar turns green only when the goal is completed. Now copy the formula down. Let's see how it works. When it's 5 out of 5, the bar turns green. And if we change the goal to 10, the bar updates automatically. That's because our max is dynamic. It depends on the goal. This works well with numbers because you don't depend on a fixed value like 100%. Everything updates based on your goal. Alright, we have 2 more examples left. Now I'll show you how to create a progress bar based on checkboxes. This works really well for tracking tasks. We start with the SPARKLINE function. For the data value, we need to count how many checkboxes are completed, so we use the COUNTIF function. Select the range with your checkboxes and then type true. This means the box is checked. Close the brackets. Now we open curly brackets to add our parameters. As usual, we set charttype to bar. For the max parameter, we set it to 5. This is the number of days in the row. For the color, we enter a color code. Now, close all the brackets, and we're done. Right now, the bar is not visible because none of the checkboxes are selected. Copy the formula down. Everything works correctly. Let's move on to the last example. In this final example, we'll add a second color to the progress bar. Here, the second color is gray. It shows how much is left to complete. We start with a column of progress in percentages. Type the SPARKLINE function and select cell B2. Open curly brackets and set charttype to bar. Set max to 100%. Then add color 1 and choose blue. For color 2, use a light gray. Oops, we got a value error. That means something in the formula is incorrect. Let me fix it. I used a comma instead of a semicolon. The bar appears, but the gray part is still missing. Why? Because this is a stacked bar and it needs 2 values to display both parts, so we need a range. Let's create the second value. In the next column, type the formula 1 minus B2. This represents the remaining percentage. Now update the SPARKLINE formula to use a range from B2 to C2, and now it works correctly. You can see both colors. If you don't want to use a second column, you can include this directly in the formula. Delete the column and write both values inside the formula. Instead of just B2, use an array, open curly brackets, select B2, add a comma, and then type 1 minus B2 and close the brackets. Now everything works the same way. Finally, let's create an overall progress bar. Insert a new row at the top. Type the SPARKLINE function again. For the data, use the average function and select the full range. Then continue as usual. Set max to 1, which equals 100%. Choose a green color. And that's it. The overall progress bar is ready. You can also merge cells to make the bar longer. Let's add the average value on the left for better visibility. Type the average function and select the range. Format the cell. Make the text smaller. Align it to the right and center it vertically. It looks much cleaner now. For a final touch, let's add a bottom border. Select the cells, go to Borders, and apply a bold bottom line. That's all for today. I hope this was helpful. I tried to explain everything as clearly as possible. Thanks for watching.